This is how the Mariners truly get an impact bat in the lineup and really potentially turn the tides here in 2024. So, we look to the Chicago White Sox and Luis Robert. This is who I'm targeting as the Mariners' second trade. We have briefly talked about him on this show before. The Mariners, all of a sudden, if they sign a starting pitcher, have the pieces to give up the haul to go get Luis Robert, a true top 20 to 25 player in this sport and a game changer that could turn this franchise in the right direction for a long time.
Do you remember when we sold on him at the trade deadline, though? I think that's funny looking back at it now that we're like, yep, this guy's the franchise changer. Man, this dude has just upside for days. We're talking about 38 home runs this season, a 128 WRC plus, and 5 Fangraphs wins above replacement while playing amazing center field defense. That's all the tools right there, if I'm checking my boxes.
Now, the cost to get a player like this is not light, and it's going to be much heavier than the first trade we just threw out for Jordan Walker. So, I wanted to try to ballpark this trade as best as I could. I did not want to throw this trade out there and make it seem like, oh, what are you talking about? You're just throwing anybody in there to go get a premier player like Luis Robert. So, we know a couple of guys here at Just Baseball, both Jack McMullen, who's the third guy on the Just Baseball show. I guess he's the one guy on the show we haven't had on here yet. And then Elijah Evans, who's a White Sox guy that does a bunch of great stuff at Just Baseball. You can check out all their work. I was talking to them today, and I said, we're going to throw this idea out there, and I want to try to ballpark this trade as best as I can. So I threw out a couple of ideas for what the potential return package would be. Here's what I've landed on. And again, buckle up. It's Bryan Woo, Cole Young, Jonathan Clase. That's what it would cost to get Luis Robert. And look, that's a haul. But Jerry Dipoto, as Jeff Passan put it, it's time for him and the Mariners to get uncomfortable. They're in a position to get uncomfortable now. And if you're a fan out there that says they need to make impact moves right now and go get serious impact bats right now, well, then you cannot also be a prospect hugger. So if you're serious about the Mariners wanting to win right now and you don't get Ohtani, the rest of the free agent class is not strong. So if you're serious about a true impact bat like this, get uncomfortable and do not be a prospect hugger. Because me personally, I love Bryan Woo. I think he's got frontline starter potential. I think Cole Young has skyrocketed up the prospect list for good reason over the last year or so. But this is what it costs to get premier talent, and the Mariners do need to win right now.
And it's not just premier talent, it's premier talent under club control through 2027. 2027. That's another 4 years of, that's 4 seasons. Yeah, 4 seasons of control of Luis Robert. That's worth Bryan Woo and Cole Young if I ever thought it. Listen, those guys are great. I don't know if Jerry would ever trade both those two prospects in the same offseason. To be honest, I don't think Jerry would. Knowing how Jerry operates and how he thinks, I don't think he would trade those two, especially Bryan Woo. But if you're told me the Mariners are getting Luis Robert, I'd do it. I do it because we've already talked about you can already supplement your rotation and negate the loss of Bryan Woo. And by the time that Luis Castillo and Aaron Nola, a Robbie Ray gets old and starts falling out of the rotation, well, I assume by then you would have developed somebody else in your sustainability plan to come up to the major leagues and start and be a good major league starter. So you can not feel the loss of Bryan Woo. I think this makes so much sense. It does. And I sound kind of like a hypocrite after, again, selling on the idea of Luis Robert at the deadline. Well, now we know the Mariners are in put up or shut up mode. And this is a put up deal that, if available, you have to do.
So just to clarify really quick, when you say you don't think the Mariners would trade those two prospects, you mean Woo and Cole Young, right? Because the only thing I was going to say is, so I don't think they trade both Bryce Miller and Bryan Woo in one offseason. I think if they were to trade either, it would only be one. I think they're trying to keep some real starting pitching depth. I do not think they ship both those guys out of town. So it would be one or the other. But I do understand you're thinking of, yeah, Jerry wouldn't trade Wu and Cole Young in the same offseason. That said, again, the Mariners do need to win right now. They have a window open. They need to capitalize. And we keep using the phrase, they need to get uncomfortable. Now, to your point, we talked about how we weren't exactly sold on the idea at the deadline. Let's just be clear. Does Luis Robert help the team's strikeout problems? Absolutely not. Luis Robert strikes out a ton. He strikes out 29% of the time. That's in the 14th percentile of the league. He chases and he whiffs even more than that. Whiff rates in the 10th percentile, chase rates in the 3rd percentile. He will strike out. And he's also not going to walk a lot. He's never had a walk rate above 5%. Just pin that into your head. Luis Robert will not walk, and he's going to strike out a lot. In that way, yes, it's a little bit like Teoscar Hernandez. Does Luis Robert make a mega impact on this team? You bet your ass he does. Luis Robert is one of the 20 best players in this sport when he's healthy. He mashes the baseball. The 38 home runs you mentioned, that was 9th in the league this year. The 128 WRC plus you mentioned, that was 18th in the league this year. The 5 WAR you mentioned, 24th in the league this year. That is an impact bat. He wallops baseballs, and the Mariners need that badly.
And this is a White Sox organization that they just hired a new GM, right? They did just hire a new GM.
Mm-hmm.
I got that correct. And I don't know what direction they're going in. And if you want a direction to go, like, you have a valuable trade chip and foundational pieces to build upon with Cole Young and Bryan Woo. I think the trade would make sense from their side. They just need to be willing to trade Luis Robert. If he's in any semblance available, you got to be at the front of the line asking. Like, this outside of Juan Soto is about as impact of a bat as you could get on this trade market. And, we don't know if they're going to get Juan Soto. We don't have Juan Soto on our wish list because we don't know how realistic that is. But Luis Robert, given that he's on the trade market, yeah, that's realistic. And I think that would make this team significantly better across the board.
4 years of club control is so much because that contract of his goes through 2025, but then there's 2 club options. There's 2 club options. Yeah. So the Mariners obviously are picking those up if they trade for him, and assuming Robert continues to play like the player we all expect him to be, yeah, that's 4 years. And we haven't even gotten to this part yet, TJ. Luis Roberts' defense, impeccable. He had 13 outs above average this year. That was in the 98th percentile of baseball. Now, you can't have 2 center fielders, and I don't think they're moving Julio away from center field. And it's kind of tomato with Julio and Robert. They're both phenomenal center fielders. But if you put Luis Robert in right field, Jared Kelenic, Julio Rodriguez, Luis Robert left to right. That's the best defensive outfield in baseball.
Without a doubt. There's no question. And you can shuffle. Well, Luis actually primarily would play. Yeah, he would. Yep, he'd be your right fielder. There's so much. The upside of this trade is just so. Man, just to think about it, that would be so much fun. And the power potential of this team, if Jerry truly still wants to be that guy to build this roster around punishing the baseball rather than be more contact oriented, it's what Luis Robert does. He punishes baseballs, and he's great. I think Jerry should do it. Do it if it's available to you.
Barrel rates in the 93rd percentile, expected slug in the 92nd percentile, hits the crap out of the ball, runs well, plays great defense, hits bombs. Yeah, he'll strike out a lot. But again, what are the Mariners going to do to improve the offense? They have to do something. The first half of the year, they were one of the bottom 10 offenses in baseball. Go do something like this. I would hate to lose Cole Young. I'd hate to lose Bryan Woo. But you've got to do something to improve this lineup. You just have to. And something like this, that makes a difference.
And Luis Robert this season is coming off the first essentially full season he's played at any professional level, really. It's been really pieced together. He comes up in 2020. I'd say technically he did play a full 2020 season, 56 of the 60 games at age 22, but Then you look after that, and in 2021, he only played 68 games. Then last year got a little bit better. He played 98 games, but now he's up to 145 this year and staying a little bit more healthy. That is one thing you might have to be concerned about is can he stay on the field and can he stay healthy? But, if you're giving up those guys, I think you believe that you're getting 145 games out of Luis Robert every single season.
The health is one concern. But again, who else are you going to go get? So I think that should be a potential trade that not just the Mariners circle, but fans should think about. I think that's a realistic one. I think it makes a lot more sense than Juan Soto. Not only does Luis Robert have way more team control, Juan Soto doesn't play any defense. So get a guy that'll be here for a while. I'm sticking to that one all offseason. Will it ever happen? Maybe not. But doesn't mean we can't wish for it. I'll say that much.